some may fall, but only you may ever see me true. So only you can tell that this is who I am. This is who I am. And you know me like a river knows how to flow. My body is the story you are always told. The sun may rise, the sun may fall, but only you may ever see me true. So only you can tell that this is who I am. This is who I am. And the white horses seems I've exhausted those fickle games I play. See my good fortune only you may ever see me true. So only you can tell them this is who I am. This is who I am. This is who This is who I am. No lie, I'm no less. This is who I am. This is who I am. Sunrise to sunset. This is who I am.
We know hell's on the horizon. We can see it from the start. We put ourselves on the line 'cause we don't want to be ignored. I can't explain why I want for you more, but the more I get, the more I want. We could get a lot closer, we could cut our ties after night time. Is it our time? The choice is yours. This move at me, tell me why. Certainly giving me what I need. Love of my baby, I'm never gonna let you down. Love of my baby, I'm never gonna put you down. You're never the light when you're showing me the door. don't care too much for writing. I'm just waiting for your call. I can't explain why I want for you more, but the more I get, the more I want. We could get a lot closer, or we could cut our ties off, and that time is at our time. The choice is yours. Put this on, make me speak over me, make me deep. Tell me why I shouldn't be. You're giving me what I need. Love my baby, I'm never gonna let you down. Love my baby, I'm never gonna let you down. Put this on, make me speak. Nothing's wrong with loving you. Tell me why I shouldn't leave. You're giving me what I need. Love of my baby, I'm never gonna let you down. Love of my baby, I'm never gonna let you down. Never gonna let you down.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. If you do not have a seat in the auditorium, please make your way to the overflow space, which is right outside the auditorium. Thank you, and we will begin the program shortly.
Thank you for joining us for the launch of All In, Global Leaders for Ending Gender-Based Violence. Please take your seats and kindly take a moment to silence your phones or switch them to vibration mode.
I ought to be, but ain't no stopping me. Oh, the dichotomy caught in between your charm and generosity. Honestly, I can't think logically when you keep popping up like hiding me, hiding me. There's no denying, but I don't need no from you to remind me. Feeling you back in my arms, picturing that isn't hard, leaves an emotional taste. Maybe time.
We are honoured to welcome to the stage Monica Alleman, International Director for the Gender, Racial and Ethnic Justice Programme at the Ford Foundation.
Good evening. Buenas noches. And I forgot how to say it in French. So. It is an honor to welcome you to the launch of All In, Global Leaders for Ending Gender-Based Violence. On behalf of the Ford Foundation, Wellspring Philanthropic Fund, the UK Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office, and our newest partners, Fundación Chanel and Mindru, thank you for being here. We are proud to be supporters of the work of All In. Your presence today signals that this work matters and that we are ready to step into a new chapter together. Tonight marks the beginning of something long-term and deeply intentional. All In is not a one-off event or a short campaign. It is a sustained, multi-year effort designed to fill critical gaps that have held back progress for far too long. As the evidence shows, gender-based violence remains one of the most widespread human rights violations in the world. Yet, political will, investment, and accountability have not kept pace with the scale of the crisis. We know GBV is preventable, but the systems surrounding it have been fragmented, underfunded, and siloed for decades. This initiative emerged from years of research, consultation, and listening across the gender-based violence ecosystem. That work highlighted three major lessons for us. First, we have evidence on what works to prevent violence. We just need to apply it at scale. Second, we have serious funding gaps, with prevention funding still being inconsistent, short-term, and marginal to national priorities. And third, and this is critical, we have learned that strategic communication and narrative change are some of the most underinvested and overlooked areas of all. I have all these very complicated English words that the Ford Foundation approved for me to read. So you just have to be patient while I get through it. So these gaps together make up the space that All In is designed to fill. All In is an initiative that is set to amplify, connect, and reinforce the work already happening across the gender-based violence ecosystem. But we know that for this work to be effective, it must be anchored on technical experts, researchers, movement leaders, and those with lived experience. That will ensure the work of the panel is equally anchored in evidence, equity, and accountability. The leaders who are part of this initiative have a clear mandate to use their voice, influence, and platforms to unlock political commitments and sustain investments for prevention, not in competition with the field, but in service of it, so that evidence reaches decision makers and prevention becomes embedded across every system where people live, learn, work, and play. This is the beginning. All-In will drive a unified advocacy agenda, unveil flagship reports, amplify survivors and frontline leaders, and support governments, donors, and institutions to embed prevention systematically. Thank you for joining us. Whether you are part of government, philanthropy, business, civil society, youth networks, or the creative industry, ending gender-based violence is everyone's responsibility, and it will take all of us together going all in. Tonight, for our conversation, we at the Ford Foundation ask that you refrain from political endorsements and that we foster an inclusive environment, recognizing many of us are survivors of violence. I want to now move to introduce the Foreign Secretary. Yvette Cooper has made violence against women a central priority in both domestic and international policy. As Foreign Secretary, she reaffirmed her commitment at the UN, calling violence against women an international emergency and urging global action against female genital mutilation, forced marriage, and online sexual violence. She has also advocated for multilateral cooperation to eliminate violence and strengthen, that is a difficult, strengthen women's rights worldwide. Yvette has worked to increase survivor support measures by proposing free legal advice and enhanced support for victims navigating the criminal justice system. Please join me in welcoming the Secretary of State for Foreign, Commonwealth, and Development Affairs, the Right Honorable Yvette Cooper.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It is a great pleasure to be here today, and particularly to be here among so many impressive leaders and so many women who, as pioneers, have refused to accept the world the way it is, and whose determination and courage have done so much to change it. Women who have changed lives here and across the globe as a result of their strength and their determination. And we've seen the hard-won gains as a result of that work that have echoed right through history as a result, but now coming together as part of this All-In initiative, a dedicated coalition in the fight against violence against women and girls. And I'm delighted that the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office is co-founding this, and can I say a special thanks to our co-hosts, the Ford Foundation and the Wellspring Philanthropic Fund, for your outstanding and ongoing contribution to tackling violence against women and girls. And I'm delighted too that the panel includes the UK's trailblazing Special Envoy for Women and Girls, the Baroness Harriet Harman, who I'm kind of thinking is somewhere in one of these front rows, but actually I can't see with all the lights and in the darkness. And Harriet, I first worked with Harriet on violence against women and girls 30 years ago, when she was working on women's equality, and she has been an inspiration for so many of us in politics here in the UK, but is also still championing women's equality around the world as well. But All In is the championing of women's safety, of women's opportunities, but also of equality and freedom, because we know safety and security are the foundations of opportunity. If you don't feel safe on your streets, you don't go out to get that job. If you don't feel safe and secure in your home, you can't seize the opportunities or build new opportunities for your family. And it's based too on that most important premise that there is nothing inevitable about violence against women and girls, and we should never accept it, never discount it, never stand by or walk away from the preventable violence that is holding back women and girls, that is blighting women's lives, but also undermining families and communities and healthy lives for women, girls, men and boys. Here today in the UK, the second report of the Angelini inquiry has been published following the terrible murder of a young woman, Sarah Everard, by a serving police officer, and an account of things that went wrong and still go wrong. And it's why we have made tackling violence against women and girls a national mission for this government, and we'll be publishing soon our national strategy to tackle violence against women and girls, led by the brilliant Minister and my friend, Jess Phillips. But today, I'm also putting this issue at the heart of our foreign policy, because this has to be a global focus. And I want to set out 3 reasons why I think it's so important that this is a global mission too. First, of course, we have the shared experience of violence against women and girls and gender-based violence across the world, which means also shared opportunities to learn from each other in fighting it and preventing it. Second, we know that sadly wherever there is conflict or war, too often we see violence against women and girls used as a weapon in that conflict, but also where women's voices are crucial to peace. And thirdly, that at a time when new technology is weaving around the world and back again, and crossing borders, but also enabling new forms of abuse and violence, it's only by working around the world and back again, and working across borders, that we can challenge that abuse, but also use new technology to prevent it. And I wanted to take each of those areas just briefly in turn. First of all, across the globe, we see shared patterns around violence against women and girls. Here in the UK, 1 in 8 women experienced domestic abuse, stalking or sexual assault last year. And we have set an unprecedented mission to halve violence against women and girls in a decade. But we know we can only do that by learning from what happens elsewhere and happens abroad, where Jess and I have talked about the work being done in Spain to tackle domestic abuse and the coordinated action across different government agencies and law enforcement. And we know too the work that we can do, the work the Foreign Office can support and fund, and in particular the What Works initiative is able to also tackle issues around the world as well, because whilst we've described violence against women and girls here in the UK as a national emergency, the reality is this is also an international emergency, be it domestic violence in the home, child marriage, female genital mutilation, the forcible taking of women's earnings, or the deliberate stopping of a girl from going to school. 1 in every 3 women and girls worldwide will experience physical or sexual violence in their lifetime. More than 50,000 women and girls are killed every year by a partner or a close relative. That's 140 women and girls every day. And so that is why our mission to halve violence against women and girls in the UK in a decade, we want to be part of a worldwide mission to prevent this kind of violence and abuse. The work that What Works is doing For example, in Pakistan, the research from the What Works to Prevent Violence initiative is now shaping the education curriculum across 160 schools in one of the provinces. The work that we have learnt from other countries across the world, but crucially, the work in the All-In position paper that sets out different evidence from all over the globe of the kinds of things that can make a huge difference. Not just saying that violence is preventable, but that it has been prevented, it can be prevented in examples around the world. Second area I wanted to highlight is the fact that we know in the worst conflicts, the worst violence in the world, that gender-based violence, the violence against women and girls, is often part of some of the worst atrocities. And we can look no further than Sudan. And last week I met the most incredibly brave woman from one of the emergency response rooms, which is the community-based groups and organisations that are trying to respond and protect civilians in the face of terrible conflict. And many of them are running community kitchens in the face of famine, but this one was providing support for women and girls who had been raped as part of the conflict and part of the war. And she described to me helping three sisters who were under 13, who had all been raped. And her bravery in providing them with huge support, the bravery of survivors of violence coming together to support each other. But their voices have to be heard in making sure we shine a spotlight in the terrible atrocities taking place now in Sudan. And their voices need to be heard as we push again and again for the desperately needed peace and the ceasefire in Sudan. But it's 25 years now since Resolution 1325, the pioneering resolution for women, security and peace that was championed by the Labour government at the time, that was about putting women's voices at the heart, not just of conflicts as victims, but at the heart of as architects of peace. So be it in Sudan, in Syria, in Myanmar, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, we need to make sure women's voices are heard in peace too. And in the Foreign Office with me when we talked about this last week was Lena Damon, who was born of conflict-related sexual violence in Bosnia and only met her birth mother 32 years later, but talked with great strength and incredibly movingly about her activism to highlight the challenges faced by survivors and their children, something so important as we are part of the current 16 days of global activism. And that takes me to the third dimension, which because this year's theme of the 16 days of activism is ending digital violence against women and girls. And that technology now that can make it possible for the most horrendous child sexual exploitation and abuse online, or the escalation of violence online, or the sharing of AI deep fakes or deep intimate images shared without consent, sexualized and violent images that can create further violence and abuse. All of that takes place as a result of technology spinning around the world, but actually we can also work in partnership around the world to challenge it as well. And so we are committed to working with others in order to be able to respond, not just the work that the UK is doing on our Online Safety Act and the new guidance on online safety, but also using new technology to help keep women safe. And so with the StopNCII.org is a new cutting-edge technology that prevents, detects and removes such images from the internet. But as part of our work between the Foreign Office and the Home Office, we are supporting the use of that not just in the UK, but also supporting civil society in Nigeria, in France, in Pakistan, to also be able to access that technology as well. Part of that raft of collaboration between nations, so we're not just starting from scratch, we're learning from each other. Evidence and action really matter, but nothing changes any of these things without commitment. And that's why All In is so important. And that's why people being here today is so important. And that's why the panel, the work that the panel has already led across the world, has already driven with the work that's been gathered together by the Secretariat, but also the work for All In going forward. That's serious leadership, serious ambition, serious commitment to acting on evidence from some of the most inspiring women in the world who are part of the All In panel. Because the impact is so vital for the work that I know they will do, that we will support. The impact that will have dividends not just for women and girls, but for men and boys too. Because the cost of inaction is estimated at $1.5 trillion every year if we fail. But we can do this for our economic resilience, for our health outcomes, for families, for communities, for countries and continents. So I ask all of you to join, to be all in, and I pledge to go all in as a UK Foreign Secretary, working to ensure that women and girls around the world can thrive and flourish, free from violence and free from fear. Thank you very much.
Please join us in welcoming Dr. Seema Samar, renowned human rights advocate, medical doctor, and former chair of the Afghanistan Independent Human Rights Commission.